Hi there everyone, this is my third battle report. It's going to be a 2,400 point Dwarves v Dark Elves. It's for the Flatlands League, which is new in the east of England, and you take an 1,800 point core army and then you add another 600 points in to take it up to the 2,400. For each game, the 1,800 points that you put down as core must remain the same, but you can swap around the additional 600 points to look at the armies that you may be facing. Everyone knows what you've got in your 1,800 points, but what you bring in your 600 can be a surprise for them. I decided to take my Dwarves for this practice game, and I've got a Lord on Shield Bearers with 2 Rune of Iron and 3 Wounds of Warding and a Rune of Stone. He's armed with a great weapon. Gives him a good defensive build, 6 wounds, additional toughness and extra attacks from the Shield Bearers. I've got a Thane with BSB. He's got the Master Rune of Grungy, which gives a 5+ ward save to shooting and magic. Then a Runesmith with 2 runes of spell breaking and a shield. He can perhaps eat that special spell from my opponent. I've got a Master Engineer with a Rune of Stone and a brace of Dwarf pistols. The core units are 26 Longbeards with great weapons, full command, Banner of Stoicism. So it just gives them the stubborn. Quarrelers, got 10 of those, taking a Musician, Banner, and great weapons, just as a hidden surprise. Got a cannon, no runes of anything. I've then got an organ gun with Rune of Accuracy, and a unit of 15 Iron Drakes with Musician and Banner, and 2 runes of Slowness. I do love that 2 runes of Slowness. It does cause a lot of grief to people. For my 600 points, I decided to take an organ gun, which has the Rune of Accuracy and the Rune of Burning, and a unit of 26 Iron Breakers with full command. They come with the Banner of Stoicism and Sanctuary, again giving them a stubborn. This is where I'm going to put my characters. Taking the Iron Breakers in the special slot here for the 1,800 points, for the 600 points, sorry, means that I could, if I wanted to, in another game, drop in a unit of Hammerers instead. So that would be good. My sort of strategy for the game was to be able to do a bit of shooting of the Witch Elves with the artillery, or any troops could do the artillery to wear them down a bit before they get into contact with my great weapon Longbeards and the Iron Breakers. Hopefully it should work. Again, we're playing the Dark Elves and Witch Elves block, and as you can see from his army list, it's going to be one of the ones where I've got to stop his main unit, because if I don't, it's going to absolutely eat me. The League are using the MoComp from the Clash of Swords 2014, which can be found on the Warhammer.org forum. If you want to see what it is. My friend's taken his Dark Elves, and this is his 1,800 points core. He's got a Dreadlord on a Dark Steed with the Armour of Destiny, Dawnstone, Potion of Foolhardiness and Dark Steed. He's got a Supreme Sorceress on a Pegasus. She has the Talisman of Preservation. She's level 4. She's got Dispel Scroll, and she was taking Death Magic in this. He's then got a Death Hag as BSB on the Cauldron, and she has the Sword of Anti-Heroes, and this goes in a unit of 30 Witches with full command and the Razor Standard. He's got 19 Corsairs with standard music and banner of Eternal Flame. He's then got 9 Doomfire Warlocks. I think Colin thought I was going to be bringing my Chaos Demons, which is the army I'm actually taking to the Flatlands Leagues. So for his 600 points he took a Cold One Chariot, 10 Sisters of Slaughter, 5 Shades and 5 Harpies. Again, a nice little 600 points to play with, to tinker with for different games and different armies that you're going to be coming up to. Obviously magic for the Dwarves, but the Dark Elves had the following spells that you can see there, which makes me think in the practice game he was only running a level 3 for his Sorceress. I know for his main list he's changed it to a level 4, and I believe in the main list she's taken Metal rather than Death. So apologies for it on that. So he's got the spells that you can see there, the basic ones that come with the Warlocks, and the additional ones for the Death Magic from the Sorceress. Looking at them now, I see that they're all fairly high basic cast value. So looking at there, the lowest one is 9+, which actually does give him some grief during the game. And on to the start of the game and deployment. I rolled a 1 for my ancestral grudge, and therefore I got hatred for my general against his general. Very disappointing. Colin has a very healthy respect of organ guns and my iron drakes, so he was very wary of where he was going to put his main units, and as we go through he decided to keep them as safe as possible. So on his left flank he started off with the warlocks, the witches and the cauldron on the BSB. He put his Pegasus behind the tower, and he had his 2 bolt throwers that could shoot across the clearing into my troops. In the centre he placed his Cold One chariot, his Corsairs and the Sisters of Slaughter. In front of those in the woods he placed his Shades. To the far right, well, my far right and to his left, were his Harpies. For my part, I knew that I had to get rid of the cauldron in the witches, otherwise I was going to be in big trouble. I also had a quandary as to what to put on my left flank by the tower. Was it going to be the Quarrelers or was it going to be the Iron Drakes? In the end I went for the Quarrelers, hoping that I could use the tower as an anchor for that flank, and with the Longbeards be able to reform them to move them to face any threat that came around on the side. In the end I went with the Quarrelers, and then from the tower I put 1 organ gun, followed then by the Longbeards with great weapons, then another organ gun, and then went for the Iron Drakes, which had my Lord on Shield Bearers, my BSB and my Runesmith. To their right I had the cannon, which had a good line of sight across as long as I didn't advance up the warriors to block their line of sight, and then the Iron Drakes on the far right angling off against the Shades, possible Sisters of Slaughter and the Harpies who were on my right flank. Here's a close-up of my iron breakers with the Lord, and as you can see the prototype Hellfire volley gun from the Empire. Obviously the Dwarves designed it and built it, and here's the first ever production run, but unfortunately didn't pass it to the Empire because they put runes on this one. Dark Elves take turn 1 and the game is on. Colin moves up the centre with the Corsairs, the Chariot and the Sisters of Slaughter, moves around the Harpies to the far right flank. His Warlocks and everything else moves up on the left flank, and we then go into magic. And on to Dark Elf magic, which fortunately for the Dwarves proved ineffectual. It was 4 dice to 2, and Colin fails a 4d6 Doom Bolt, which was going to go on the cannon because he thought that was the biggest risk. And then into shooting, he attempts the 2 RBTs, the bolt throwers, onto the cannon, but only managed to do 1 wound. I think I got off very lightly in that shooting phase. And with the magic, very lucky. And on to Dwarf turn 1. I took back the Longbeards and the Ironbreakers just a little bit, just to open up the lines of sight onto the Dark Elves, and moved the Iron Drakes round just to get a little bit of view onto the troops in front of it. So shooting, the shooting phase was quite good. Went on to the organ guns and they took a shed load off of the Corsairs. The Corsairs, however, passed their panic check with the good leadership that they have. The Quarrelers on the left flank even managed to take off one of the Warlocks. The cannon hits the cauldron, but when I roll to wound I get a 1, and therefore it doesn't do anything. A lucky reprieve for the Dark Elves. Dark Elves turn 2, and yep, the Warlocks declare a charge on the Quarrelers. I decide to stand and shoot, because I know if I flee I'm just going to be straight off the board. Perhaps I can take 1 or 2 the Warlocks with me. He also decides to charge the Harpies into the Iron Drakes, which was quite good. Because of the 2 runes of slowness, the Harpies fail their charge, which then allows me to get a shot off towards whoever would be in range of the Iron Drakes in my turn. In the centre, Colin decides he's actually going to use his chariot. He decides to charge into my leftmost organ gun. He needs a 12. So he picks up the dice, he rolls the dice, and he gets, yeah, you guessed it, 6, allowing the chariot to get into the organ gun. What a pain. And in come the Warlocks. Everything else moves up, and for the magic phase it's 6-4 to the Dark Elves. I managed to stop a soul bite on the Quarrelers, but he gets a word of pain off, reducing down their abilities. The Quarrelers don't do very well and lose 7 of them in the initial phase, so they flee and then are ridden down. In the centre, the Cold One chariot smacks straight into the cannon and kills them all. Colin decides to overrun with the Cold One chariot, but unfortunately for him, it doesn't leave the table and then stops just short. This should give me an opportunity to do something with it next turn. The brave Quarrelers manage to take up another Warlock before breaking, fleeing and getting run down, taking the Warlocks off the board. I reform the Longbeards to face the Cold One chariot and to face the threat from the Warlocks and the Witch Elf Cauldron coming around to me. In the centre, the Organ Gun remaining and the Iron Drakes concentrate on the Corsairs in the middle and do enough wounds to take them off, which is a good result. Leaves his Shades and the Sisters of Slaughter now in the centre against my troop. Unfortunately, where the Cauldron and the Witch Elves are, I can't actually target with my cannon, so I use my cannon to aim at the repeater bolt throwers. I get a hit but roll a 1 to wound again, so another ineffectual cannon shot. So Dark Elf turn 3 and the Warlocks are back on. Colin moves them to a safe position and turns them to face my Longbeards. The Cauldron stays where it is, keeping it safe from the cannon. Once again, Colin decides to charge the Harpies into the flank of the Iron Drakes, and this time he actually manages to get them in, so causing me to not be able to shoot this turn. In the centre, Colin decides to try and move his chariot, but it cannot get out of the arc of the Longbeards. Once again, Dark Elf magic is a bit of a washout for Colin. He gets 9 dice to 6, but he fails to cast Doom Bolt, and then he goes for Word of Pain and I'm able to stop it. Shooting, he's unable to wound the cannon yet again, so I'm being a bit lucky in the number of wounds that he's not actually hitting on them. Dwarf turn 3 and I declare a charge on the rear of the chariot. Should be a good one. Just a quick shot to show where the units are on this flank before I move the charging Longbeards into the back of the chariot. In the shooting phase I'm a bit more luckier this turn and I'm able to take out one of the repeating bolt throwers with the cannon. So that was a good result. Luckily I rolled low for the organ gun with a 4 and a misfire, and then I re-roll the misfire dice and only get a 2, giving me 6 possible chances to wound. But I do manage to take off another couple of Warlocks. The Iron Drakes open up on the Sisters of Slaughter, who ventured a little bit too close towards them. A good shot, and I managed to get rid of 4 of the Sisters with the Iron Drakes. Colin then proceeded to roll double 6 for their leadership test, and they were off like a rocket, not to come back, but to rally in the far edge. Not a good matchup for the chariot with the Longbeards into the back with strength 7 on the charge. The warriors managed to mincemeat of the chariot and the cold ones. Now you see it, now you don't. At the end of the combat I reformed to face the Warlocks and the Cauldron of Witches. Dark Elves turn 4 and the Witches declare a charge on the Longbeards. This is not going to be pretty. I've seen and been on the receiving end of this charge a number of times before. The Witch Elves just tend to go through anything that they hit. I'm hoping that the Stubborn Banner may just give me enough chance to get a turn or 2. The Witch Elves easily make it into the Longbeards, and I'm now waiting for the carnage to begin. Once again, magic doesn't work for the Dark Elves. Colin goes for a big Word of Pain, and I use the Spell Eating rune to get rid of it. I don't roll to get rid of it totally, but I do stop everything else in his magic phase. In the shooting phase, the Dark Elves repeating crossbow is able to take off the last wound of the cannon. Yep, and in combat, it goes as badly as I feared it would. Very few left in the front rank. I do very few wounds on the actual cauldron. Fortunately, with the stubborn banner, I stick. This is going to give me one more shot off with the organ guns, and hopefully that's going to have an impact on his warlocks. And then it's going to act as a speed bump before it hits my iron breakers, which I've been able to reform to face. Dwarf turn 4. I turn the organ gun to face the warlocks, and I turn the iron breakers to face the oncoming onslaught from the witches for once they hit the gun and then overrun. It's going to be the last shot I'm going to get with the organ gun before it gets hit by the witches. And what a time to get, yep, double tens. What a result. And rolling to wound, yep, marvellous. And there, yeah, don't see any more warlocks. The whole unit wiped out. And in combat, the inevitable happens, and yep, those longbeards are wiped out to a dwarf, which allows, in the Dark Elves' turn, for them to charge the organ gun. Dark Elves turn 5, and yep, the cauldron goes smack into the organ gun. Don't think that's going to hold them up very much at all. So, onto magic, and another low roll. So, 4 dice to 3. Colin goes for a large soul blight, and rolls 19. I've got 3 dice, and I roll the dice, and I've got to see if I can beat it. And what a result. 2 6s and a 4 stops it going off on the iron breakers. Result. As predicted, the witches and the cauldron made short work of the iron gun, the organ gun, and just roll it over into the iron breakers. On to dwarf turn 5, and more or less the flavour of the rest of the game in turn 6 of the Dark Elves and 6 of the Dwarves. Nothing really happens. The high armour save, toughness, and the ward save keeps the iron breakers alive. When all the victory points are added up, the Dwarves beat the Dark Elves by 30 points. So a draw, or a 10-10 if you play it in the 20-0 system. A really hard game. Yeah, thinking back on what happened and my thoughts. Looking back on deployment, I think I really should have gone with the Iron Drakes and 1 organ gun on the flank to the left of the tower. I think that would have really made it very secure. Go with one of the organ guns and the cannon, the Longbeards, and the Iron Breakers to the right, and then with the Quarrelers perhaps in the tower would have been a much more stronger route through. But here you go, that's how it happens. I think Colin was really unlucky with his magic. He rolled pretty low during the whole game, very little above a 10 for dice, which means that I could fortunately stop them, or Colin failing to cast them, requiring that basic 9, 11 and 12 to cast. Because he wanted to get perhaps 2 bits of magic off in a turn, he was not going with the number of dice. But I think he was just unlucky. Overall a draw then. I thought the Iron Breakers worked well and the organ guns worked well in this game. If you liked what you saw, please hit the like button and hopefully keep watching. Subscribe to the channel again. Hope to get another report out soon. Don't think it'll be a league game, but it'll probably be another game against Colin if we can fit a game in sometime this week. Hoping to get a game tomorrow if he's free, and we'll see what we do. Probably around about 2-400 again. Thanks very much for watching, and say if you like it, please hit the like button and subscribe. Bye!